Chaplin changes. Can you? This is a new series I'm going to start known as Silent Links, where I analyze the films of actors and filmmakers who are famous in the silent era, but now have to deal with the challenge of sound. And today's first episode is a doozy, my friends. This film is Monsieur Verdoux, one of Chaplin's most controversial and arguably one of his most intriguing motion pictures. The main plot concerns Chaplin as a serial killer who murders rich widows in order to support his middle-class family. After the success of The Great Dictator, Chaplin went on to make the 1942 re-release of The Gold Rush. Also, he had picked up a lot of controversy between The Great Dictator and Monsieur Verdoux, having a pregnancy suit with Joan Barry, and marrying an 18-year-old Una O'Neill. And a lot of his patriotism was called into question because A. Chaplin never applied for citizenship, and B. seemed to support the communist cause in Russia when really he just supported the opening of a second front in Russia during World War II, because he felt that was the key to victory against the Nazis. So making a film where he condemns the use of nuclear weapons and murders women was not the best choice for the British filmmaker. Now the story of Monsieur Verdoux is interesting because Chaplin didn't come up with the initial concept. It was Orson Welles who suggested that Chaplin should act in a film of his about the famed French serial killer Henri Landru. Chaplin decided to purchase the film rights from Orson Welles and credit him with as having an idea of the project, and Chaplin decided to make the character of Henri Landru into Henri Verdoux and make it a sharp satire of bourgeois life and the nuclear age. This character is interesting. Some people argue he's the tramp, some people argue he's not the tramp. I'd say any variation of the tramp always exist, even in Chaplin characters that are not explicitly referred to as the tramp. But I will discuss that another day. Today, we're talking about Monsieur Verdoux, not the tramp. This was, if you want to technically say, this was Chaplin's first film where he does not play a character with a toothbrush mustache. Instead, he actually grew a mustache for the role of Monsieur Verdoux, which I find quite interesting. The story is interesting because it's told in flashback. From the beginning, you know what happens. And you get this picture painted of these different characters. Each wife that Verdoux has is interesting. The first wife that we hear mention of is already dead. She is already a goner. Verdoux has already killed her, and he's already seized her money at this point of the story. But we see elements at the fact that this character is not entirely unlikable. For instance, we see that he's clipping roses and working on his very gorgeous garden when he comes to find he almost steps on a caterpillar. He picks up the caterpillar and puts him on a leaf and sends him on his way. The average person would have said, okay, a caterpillar, whatever. If you stepped on it, you probably wouldn't have felt like you killed a person. You just feel like it's a caterpillar. Okay, it's sad, but whatever. But Chaplin takes this moment to show us that Verdoux, at heart, is not a terrible person. In fact, it's the events and the world around him that makes him a terrible person. Or so it seems. But for now, we know that Verdoux lost his job as a bank clerk because of the Great Depression. He had been working there for 30 years as a loyal employee, honest man, but he lost his job, so he had to provide some way of subsistence for his family. Now, it could be argued that he didn't need to do all this. Later on in the film, it is noted that the wife of Verdoux, his real wife, who happens to be invalid, who happens to be crippled, doesn't mind the fact that, wouldn't mind the fact at least, that they would have to live in a one-room apartment. She doesn't mind that at all. If it meant him being with her and their son more often, then why not? But Chaplin Chaplin is criticizing middle-class values, the struggle, the constant fight to be a part of the middle class, to have a sense of normalcy. So his murders and his wife and children are his excuse. They're his means of obtaining that normalcy. And his real wife doesn't even know about the murders that he commits to supply them with this gorgeous lifestyle. And you can make an argument that he's not really doing it for them. He's doing it for himself to achieve a sense of normalcy. Another character that is of note in this film is Madame Gronet, who we meet in the beginning of the film because Chaplin is selling the villa of his deceased wife that he stole the money from the beginning of the film. Yes, that was a mouthful. And he pursues her throughout the remainder of the running time as another one of his monetary options. So there are some interesting subtleties with this character. Not her character, but how Chaplin treats the character. When he first meets her, he asks if she has any family, or he says that, oh, it's just you and your husband. And she's like, my husband's been dead. And he's like, indeed. And he grins and chuckles a little bit. Normal reaction would be like, I am so sorry about that. But Chaplin takes that moment to show you that the gears in Verdoux's head are turning, and he isn't stupid. He finds himself another potential mate, a potential monetary investment in Madame Gronet. Later on in the film, even, he doesn't even recognize who Madame Gronet is. To him, it's superfluous, as long as he finds another rich widow. Which is rather cynical when you think about it, and opens itself up for comedic situations. Another major character in the film is Martha Ray's hysterical Annabelle Bonaire. And this is the one wife that you see Chaplin try to kill on screen. Explicitly. And it's impossible for him to kill her. You hate her so much, she's so annoying. You want to see Chaplin murder her, but it never happens. She is as invincible as the little tramp himself. Which is ironic. It's like before, Chaplin was the character that couldn't be killed. Now, Chaplin is trying to kill someone, but that character can't be killed. Which I think is hilarious. And there are so many comedic situations that Chaplin is able to exploit with the Annabelle Bonaire character. Another female character I want to mention, that I like to point out of interest is Madame Fleury, who is mean-looking, she's old, she's bitter. Even if Chaplin tries to say, oh, I love you, she's more like, what? What do you want? You just want money. And Chaplin, with his constant pursuits, tries to convince her to take her money out of the bank. And it sets up the fact that this woman is unlikable, so we want to see her dead. Which you could say is some form of manipulation, but you have to have some aspects to root for Monsieur Verdoux. The final female character I think is of note is Marilyn Nash's portrayal of the girl, a woman that Chaplin meets up towards the middle of the film, where he tests a poison, but he doesn't use it because of reasons that you should see and watch the film. And her portrayal of the character seems like the only innocent character in the entire film that doesn't include Verdoux's real wife and son. She's a character you genuinely like, and she's beautiful, and you say to yourself, how could Chaplin kill her? And Chaplin does not kill her. However, she is not innocent, and I do not want to spoil that for you because it is really quite amazing that this character becomes what she is. Now, let me get to the most important element of this film, or at least what I think is the most important element. Monsieur Verdoux himself. What do I think of Chaplin's performance? I think it's his best performance. Chaplin, of course, is a master at pantomime and silent expression. But Chaplin proves even further with this film and with The Great Dictator that he could just as easily be an amazing actor in the world of sound cinema. He articulates his dialogue. He gives things enough pronunciation. He gives subtlety in his performance, which of course he learned from the silent era, but it turns out very well in Monsieur Verdoux. For instance, like I mentioned with Madame Gronet, when he says, "Indeed." He chuckles, and it's so menacing, but it's very charming at the same time. And the other thing I love about this character is that, like I said earlier, his gestures and facial expressions at certain things, and when he's looking at the clock for Madame Gronet, not Madame Gronet, when he's looking at the clock with Madame Fleury, he's, kind of waiting, and he's trying to see how fast he can get Madame Fleury to go to the bank and take the money out. That way he can kill her and go off with the money. Which is an absolute great piece of suspense, and you could have said, wow, if that scene was directed by Hitchcock, I wouldn't have been able to tell the difference because it feels like the same elements are at play here. Another scene that I love is when he calls Madame Gronet and he does this over-the-top melodramatic conversation saying how much he loves her and how they're destined to be together, they're soulmates. You see the owner of the flower shop, who's a very beautiful actress, by the way, and she's just like, oh my God. And it's almost like in her head saying, I wish I had a man like that who said things like that to me. And that's a great piece of directing by Chaplin, showing that he cares about the other characters and other situations going on within a scene as opposed to the main conflict within a scene. At this point, I will say, spoiler alert, because I'm going to talk about the end of Monsieur Verdoux. Monsieur Verdoux is ultimately caught and put on trial and sent to the guillotine, I think. And he makes a statement that is rather interesting. Numbers sanctify. Now, at this point, you have to realize 1947 was at the time when Hitler had exterminated the Jews, America had dropped the bomb at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and Chaplin was commenting on a world where they used science and technology to continue the mass murder of human beings. Which is incredible because it counteracts what Chaplin says towards the end of The Great Dictator, where he says, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. This is the cynical version. This is basically, the end of The Great Dictator is a very hopeful ending, whereas Monsieur Verdoux is a very cynical, very bitter ending. This is basically the dark side of The Great Dictator, where, yes, science and progress can lead to the happiness of human beings, but look what else it can do. It can contribute to the systematic murder, the systematic homicide of human beings. This film is a dark comedy, so some of you might not care for that, but for me personally, I enjoy it because it's a nice diversion from Chaplin's normal realm of sentimentality, and that's not to say I don't like the sentimentality. I mean, come on, City Lights, Modern Times, Gold Rush. Come on, they're great movies, and I like them more than Monsieur Verdoux. But Monsieur Verdoux is a very good diversion from these themes and shows that Chaplin is a great sound filmmaker. And I am so glad this film exists. I'm surprised the US government didn't go after it. I mean, the film bombed at the box office. People further noted that Chaplin was a communist, and I'm surprised Chaplin didn't get booted out of America earlier. When you look at this film and how controversial it was at the time. If you're a first-time viewer of Monsieur Verdoux, you could check it out on Hulu Plus, iTunes, or the new Criterion Blu-ray, Spine 652, on DVD or Blu-ray. If you're revisiting Verdoux, then I highly recommend you get this Blu-ray package and re-examine Chaplin's powerful, controversial film. Thank you for watching Silent Links, and I shall see you on Silent Film Saturday, where I shall check out Chaplin's underrated film, The Circus.